Hello. Hi, Roz. So here we are again with our friend Swami Rama and Mandukya Upanishad in the text titled Enlightenment Without God. Hello to Serene. Hi, Scott. And let me find this little spot here. Just as a refresher here, something here. Don't mind me. Well, somewhere here is what I'm looking for. Mandukya Upanishad is considered to be more profound than any other Upanishad. It is declared in Muktika Upanishad that if one studies and practices the teaching of Mandukya Upanishad, one acquires the knowledge to attain enlightenment. This Upanishad is not a book of mere mysticism, theology, or scholasticism, but is a sound philosophical scripture. Blah, 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 blah. And then we're on verse number 5. I think, yes, we're on verse number 5 of the 12. There's Jordan. Hi, Jordan. Hi, Roseanne. And so just to give us, we can't do all these each time, it would be too long, but just to give us a grounding for today in where we've been, the verses before this says, verse 1 says, Hari Om. The entire universe is the syllable Om. The following is the exposition of Om. Everything in the past, present, and future is verily Om. That which is beyond time, space, and causation is also Om. That's pretty big, isn't it? Om is really big, a really big thing, isn't it? That it encompasses all of that. Number 2, all this, whatsoever is seen, here, there, and everywhere, is Brahman. This very self, Atman, is Brahman, the absolute reality. The Atman has 4 aspects, and that's what we're going through now. We're going to go through aspect number 3 today. Verse 3 says, the first aspect is the waking state, Vaishnava. And actually, as we talked before, waking is what we do in the plane of reality called Vaishnava. In this state, consciousness is turned to the external. We all kind of know that. With its 7 instruments and 19 channels, it experiences the gross phenomenal world. Number 4, the second aspect is the dreaming state, Tejasa. In this state, consciousness is turned where? Inward. It also has 7 instruments and 19 channels, which experiences the subtle mental impressions. And note when we come to 5 that it will no longer mention those 7 channels and 19 instruments, because in this next level, they have receded back into their latent form. They're not doing anything. Which brings us to verse 5. The third aspect is deep sleep, prajna. In this state, there is neither desire nor dream. In deep sleep, all experiences merge into the unity of undifferentiated consciousness. The sleeper is filled with bliss and experiences bliss and can find the way to knowledge of the 2 preceding states. So note there again that the instrumentations are not functioning in deep sleep. consciousness is still there, but there's no instrumentation. So we cannot experience the external world. We cannot experience dreams. This is why in this plane of reality, we do something that we commonly call deep sleep or dreamless sleep. This is what we're targeting with Yoga Nidra. Among all three states, waking, dreaming, and sleeping, the sleeping state is the finest. In this state, one experiences the void or deep sleep, and we actually do experience it. This is the unconscious state, what you and I normally call unconscious, because we think of this out here as being the conscious state. It's language. We don't know. This is so alluring out here in the world that when we're doing this, we think we're absolutely convinced that this is reality and that other is I'm just going to sleep for a little while, and it's an inferior level. It's actually a superior level because it's the ground out of which the dreams and our experience out here in the world emerge. This out here emerges out of that. So it's the higher ground, which is why the yogis keep telling us that we have fallen asleep into this world out here. In our common language, it's very, very common. You don't have to be a yogi. Many people talk about spiritual awakening, right? You've heard it many times, spiritual awakening. Well, if we are trying to awaken, then what is the state that we are trying to awaken from? Sleep. So this that we have done out here, we have fallen asleep into this world out here. It's not a bad world. That's not a criticism. That's not saying, oh no, let's escape from this nasty world out here. That's not what we're saying. But we have fallen into sleep into this physical dream out here. And so we're trying to awaken. And so it's kind of, we've got it kind of backwards is what's being said here. This is the unconscious state. This prajna level that we're talking about here. When a yogi is able to bring consciousness of the two preceding states to deep sleep, such a state is called prajna. And remember, we said before, the actual states are Jagrat, Swapnu, and Sushupti. What you and I do as waking, you and I do as dreaming, and you and I do as deep sleep. That's what we do in those three planes of reality called Vaishnava, Tejasa, and Prajna here. So this Prajna level, this is where you and I go at night when we fall asleep and we are in deep sleep. And having no dreams, no pictures, no words, no senses, no thinking is going on. Even that strong-willed ego part of us has fallen asleep. The most egotistical person, you watch that person when they're asleep, they're just laying there very quietly, seemingly at peace, sleeping. The experience of sleep is different from the sleeping state. That's what I'm trying to emphasize. It's so easy. This stuff is so subtle that when you just read it, you can read over it and just not even at all understand what's being said, but you don't even know that you don't understand it. That's what happened to me the first few times I went through this. I had good fortune. I had the good fortune to actually realize I don't know what I'm reading here. I'm reading sentences and paragraphs, and I don't have any idea what it's saying. And it led me to finally just accept that I'm an idiot and I can't do anything with this. And I set this book down and I said, maybe after some time. A few years later, I picked it up after doing a whole bunch of sadhana and all this stuff we keep talking about. A few years later, I picked it up again, and suddenly I could read the thing, and the whole thing made sense to me. And now it's just totally obvious. But that's the nature of this. This is the reason I'm saying it to you, that when we sit out here in the waking state and we start having conversations about this stuff, it's the reason that we sit and we listen, you know. we're in a college classroom taking notes in our notebook. Very common. Sit in a classroom taking notes in our notebook so I can memorize the data and I can pass the multiple choice exam and get a good grade in the course and still not have any idea what we're looking at. And I don't mean that as an insult of any of us, because I'm talking about me, and that's what I went through. In this state, the mind is aware of neither physical nor mental phenomena. Guess what? Manas is one of those instruments that were talked about in waking and dreaming. We use manas, the sensory motor mind, out here. I'm using it right now. You're using it right now. And if we're laying there having a dream, we're using the subtle aspect of it in the dream state. But in the deep sleep state, the instrument of manas itself recedes back and takes a rest. So it's not doing anything either. In this state, the mind is aware of neither physical nor mental phenomena. In this state, one does not desire, dream of, nor experience material objects, and the conscious mind is withdrawn from the phenomenal world. This state is also a gateway that leads to the experience and understanding of dreaming and wakefulness. Now, that's a very odd sounding comment. Sounds kind of, we can read through the words. None of the English words there are foreign to us. But by understanding, the more, this is why we practice Yoga Nidra, the more that we attempt to be aware, conscious, while we in fact are doing deep sleep, the more we try to do that. We may not do it a lot. We may get little bitty glimpses of it, a couple seconds at a time. But gradually it starts to give us some insight about waking and dreaming. And we realize that the conscious mind out here, that everything that I'm doing out here is based on this ground manifesting outward. Scott says, yes, that's similar, that I really have a little comprehension to what I'm thinking, feeling right now, listening to this. Good. Good. It's a wonderful thing. Hi, Walter. It's a wonderful thing to say, I don't understand. I've heard Swami Rama, somewhere in his lectures, he refers to himself as a fool and an idiot, or fool. I don't know, maybe I'm the one that says idiot. Anyway, so it's a good thing. As one moves from the waking reality to the dreaming reality, remember this, you've already done this many, many times. We do it every day. We move from waking reality to dreaming reality. As one moves from the waking reality to the dreaming reality to the reality of dreamless sleep, there is a progressive movement away from involvement in the world of objects. Pretty neat, huh? To the waking consciousness, the state of dreamless sleep appears to be a state of consciousness of a very high order. Or it seems like it's just stupid, inert. I'm just asleep. But when we're looking at it the way that we're looking at it now, we come to see that that dreamless state is a very high order of awareness. It's an order of awareness that is not entangled with all of these objects of the world. Here one experiences unity in contrast to the diversity of the objects experienced in the waking state. Experiences the unity rather than the diversity. In the waking state out here, I am contracted down to this little bitty person, and here I am, and out here is all of this world, and there's all of you people there, and there's all these objects out here, there's these chairs and couches and all this stuff in the room here, all this diversity. If I walk out on the street and get in a car, drive down the road, there's all these other people, there's all this activity, tremendous diversity. You go the other way. Hello, Marydell. It is a good thing to feel like an idiot. Yes, yes, yes. As long as we hold that in the proper way, which I know you're holding it in that way, Scott, then it evokes laughter. You even put an LOL behind it, laughing out loud. There's just nothing more humorous in the world, it seems, than the nature of our own mental process. It's just really humorous. Here one experiences unity in contrast to the diversity of the objects experienced in the waking state. Yogis describe this as a void or a state of purely subjective consciousness that has a blissful quality here. Now, when you describe it as a void, why would we use a word like void? Because it appears to be devoid of objects and things. We feel deprived. It feels like void sounds like something I don't want to do. Void sounds like, what happened to everything? It's gone. I want to get it back. But we call it void because everything has receded back to its pure potential, including your habit patterns. All your wants and wishes and desires are in the totally latent form when they are there. Void, state of purely subjective consciousness. The idea of subjective consciousness is, here is my card that has my circle chart on it. So this card is an object. The idea of subject-object relationships, the word object in that word pair makes sense because I'm just surrounded by objects. Here's a book, here's the card, here's a pen. I don't know why this is here, but here's a little roll of tape. And over here is a shawl. These are all objects. So who is it that's being aware of the object here? The subject. To me, that word sounds a little bit weird. Why don't we call it the witnesser or the observer or something? And that's what it is. But it's a philosophical terminology, the subject-object relationship. I don't know why they use that word, but it's a commonly used word. So I, as the observer, whoever I am the subject, this is the object. That's what's being referred to there. Yogis describe this as a void or a state of purely subjective consciousness that has a blissful quality. Note here with this thing about void. I'm not going to put names on this because I'm not trying to create a fight with any system or approach of meditation. But some approaches of meditation say that the height of meditation is the void, that there is nothing beyond this. There is no acknowledgement whatsoever of anything called Atman. Some even refer to the term something like anatma, saying that there is no such thing of Atman. And some people will carry this far enough. Again, I'm not trying to pick a fight. Some people will carry it as far. Now I lost my train there. As far as to say there is no such thing as a capital S self. There is no such thing as Atman. Therefore, and we'll tell even beginning level students, don't waste your time studying any philosophies that talk about Atman, because there's no such thing as Atman. Don't look for the capital S self. It does not exist. The whole journey ends with the void. That's the end of the journey. It's not. But like many things in life, if there's something we don't know and we're with another person who we have some respect for, we're reading a book that we think is authoritative, and it tells you this kind of information, you just naturally, you take it in as the truth and don't explore any further. I'm just pausing to say this in relation to this word void. The void here just simply means formless. It has come outward into form. If I'm holding a bucket of ink, a bucket doesn't have to be a bucket, it can be a pan. The ink that's, there was a delay there. The ink that is inside, hello Anjan, the ink that is inside of my pen is formless. So as a metaphor, we can say the ink is the void. It's only when the ink comes out of the pen and it goes into particular shape and form, then it has meaning. So the card has ink on it. The book has ink on it, and it's spread around in certain ways of symbols and letters, and now it has meaning. So one is formless and the other starts to have form. And yet it's fair to say that the ink is a metaphor for the void. Here one experiences unity in contrast to the diversity of the objects experienced in the waking state. Yogis describe this as a void or a state of purely subjective consciousness that has a blissful quality. That's why we like to lay down and go to sleep. And after the sleep, your friend says, so how did you sleep? Very, very well. It was very nice. Or at the end of a busy day, what do we all want to do? We want to go to void. Only we say, I want to go to sleep. I want to go to the void and be asleep. I want to switch off all my senses. I want to switch off my mind. I want to switch off my ego. I want to switch off all of this and just be in the void. I want to sleep. We all know that, don't we? The sleeper ordinarily enters this blissful state a few times each night and replenishes oneself. But unfortunately, one is not able to be consciously aware of being in that state. In some sense, we should insert the word usually or typically or ordinarily. So then it would say one is not ordinarily able to be consciously aware of being in that state. So one does not fully experience its blissful quality. We only get a little carryover of the blissful quality when we come back into waking, and we seem to bring with us a little bit of the bliss of sleeping. So there it says, not able to be consciously aware of it. Next sentence, though, here it comes. Yogis, therefore, practice methods for extending self-consciousness into that state, to be conscious of that state. They state that the task of the human being is to become consciously aware of the state of deep sleep, which is the unifier of all manifest states and experiences. They all are unified when they go back to the ink level. If I can go back to my ink pen metaphor. When all of our thoughts and engagements out here in the world, when the manas itself recedes back in the 10 indriyas, the senses, when they recede back and all of that together collectively recedes back to where it came from, we have we can fully experience bliss if we don't lose consciousness. High, let's see, is this, I can't read the letters at all, but the one person I know that hangs out in the satsang told me, and so I don't know if it's you or not, but there's Muhammad, and I guess somewhere in the lettering there that I cannot read is Muhammad. So is this Muhammad? Is this Muhammad, the Muhammad that I know, or is this somebody else? I'm just curious. Type it in the box. Say yes, it's me, or something. Rosalind says yoga nidra, not yoga nidra. Yes, yoga nidra. And so what is yoga nidra? Yoga nidra is sleep. And how does a yogi sleep? Consciously. That's what we're talking about. Yogis therefore practice methods for extending self-consciousness into this state. They state that the task of the human being is to become consciously aware of the state of deep sleep, which is the unifier of all manifest states and experiences. Note here, yes, hi, Muhammad. Yes, that's that you are who I thought you were. You see, I told you before I can't read your name, but when I see that, when I saw that, I wondered if that was you, and I was right. So welcome, nice to see you. And so look here, isn't this fascinating when we ponder on this like this? Some people consider these symbols that we're using, the Om symbol, etc., they consider it a religion. It is a religion of those people of that culture over there. We are over here and they are over there. Now, forgive my possible sounding of a little sarcasm. I don't mean it with ill will, but isn't it astounding that sleep is considered, in effect, religion? If you say that this stuff that we are looking at is religion, it's not. Everybody does waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. Every one of us. There's nobody excluded from that. But because out here in the waking state, we as a humanity have so collectively, completely fallen asleep into this world of diversity out here that we even label sleep as a religion. I don't mean that in the sense that look how smart I am and that those people over there are so stupid that they think religion is, that they think sleep is a religion. I'm not meaning that in some insulting sort of way. I'm saying it in a sort of astounding sort of way. This is part of the reason, I think this is the reason that Swami Rama chose to entitle this book Enlightenment Without God. You remember when I don't know if you were with us when we first started this thing, I read you this comment that is from the beginning of this book. It's the publisher's note. And I know the man who wrote this note. I'm sure this book will help the aspirant, but at the same time it might annoy some who are not prepared to listen to independent ideas. But when we carefully read the whole book, we come to the conclusion that enlightenment is possible through self-discipline and self-realization. Whether it can be attained without God, I do not know. And then he signs his name. And several years later, many years later, at least 20 years later, I asked this man about this. I said, I have a question. You wrote this in the front of this book. And he said, it was a ghostwriter who wrote it to ask me to put my name on it to write this. I said, ghostwriter? I said, is that who I think it is? He said, mm-hmm.
And it's the one thing they omitted from the new book.
Yeah, and when they reprinted this book, they have removed this part here. It's a clue. It's humorous. It's the humor of Swami Rama. It's his humorous way of saying this. I'm going to entitle the book Enlightenment Without God, and then I'm going to recruit one of the people in the ashram, in the institute, to write the publisher's note in the front and actually include the sentence, I don't know if you can do it without God or not. And then there's some beautiful sections in the introduction here that talk about the meaning of the word God and how we can approach it. I'm coming back to this just to make some sense of the comment that I'm making down here. It's not anti-God. It's making this word God even bigger, even more infinite. Even more infinite. It has to do with waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. So we come to see that this deep sleep state is a state of fully conscious bliss, if only we do it by being awake. And my friends, that is not a religion. But unfortunately, this gets cast as a religion book, the Mandukya Upanishad and all these things. And it's not. It's just not. It's not in my copy. You have a newer copy. When they reprinted this a few years, it went out of print for years. And for years, I had a PDF copy of this on my website that was downloaded at least 100,000 times, because I finally realized this is too good, that humanity should be deprived of this because the publisher quit publishing it. And then somewhere along the way, a few years ago, they decided to start printing it again. And I didn't notice it and didn't pay any attention to it. And then somewhere around a year or two after that, I got an email from one of their people in the new publishing department there that told me, this is our copyrighted material, and you have this PDF file on your website. Would you please take it down? And I wrote him back. I said, yes, I'm happy to take it down. But as you know, it was out of print for many, many years, probably 20 years. They didn't print the book. I remember along the way in there, it was selling in the Amazon used book, Amazon.com used book market. There was one on there being offered for sale for $170. And I got an email from a woman who knew my website. And she asked me if I knew where she could get a copy of this book without spending so much money to get a used copy. And I said, no, I don't. I don't know where you can get a copy of the book. Anyway, a couple of weeks later, the same lady wrote me back, and she said, I want this information so bad. I spent the $170. She spent $170 to get this book. And then it was still probably 5 years later that they finally started printing it again. And they changed the introduction, which is understandable. It was a publisher's note from the 1980s. And so it's understandable that people do things like that.
In case people indeed have the new version and they don't find it.
Yeah, and in some sense it doesn't matter, because we still have to talk about it, because this is so profoundly rich. It's in simple English language. It's the beauty of this text. It's the beauty of it, that it says so much, but we can't read it. As I told you earlier, and I've said many times, I was first trying to understand this book was out. I couldn't read it. And fortunately, I had the good wisdom to know that the problem was me. I'm just not ready to understand this yet. I need to set this book aside, and I set the book aside. I don't mean I sat there and looked at the book for years thinking, okay, I'm going to keep, one of these days I'm going to understand it. It went out of my mind. I completely forgot of the existence of this book. And it was several years later. I don't remember exactly how many years that it was. Several years later, I stumbled into the book again. And this was after having done a lot of practice of this stuff, after the day came where Swami Rama told me, you are on the path and I will lead you. And on that very moment, I said, internally, I said to myself, I'm just going to follow the instructions. Doesn't matter whether I understand it, doesn't matter what I believe in. I'm not a blind faith guru follower kind of personality. I'm just not. But I had this sense that this may be my one shot in life. I think that I'm in the presence of a yogi that really knows what this stuff is about. I'm just going to follow the instructions. When he told me to do Agnisara, I thought, what a stupid exercise that is. When he told me to do Yoga Nidra, I thought, what a waste of time this. I'm supposed to lay down and go to sleep. When am I going to get the real practices? But he started telling me to do these things. This was after I had finally come to conclusion. I said, I'm just going to do what I'm told to do. And then he started telling me personally, and I made this great grand discovery that what he was telling me personally was the same thing that he was saying out publicly for years to everybody. This is what a yogi is supposed to do, is supposed to tell us the truth, what he understands the truth to be, and say, here's the way that I know that you can gain something in doing that. So I listened. Anyway, They state that the task of the human being is to become consciously aware of the state of deep sleep. Sounds odd, doesn't it? Comma. Which is the unifier of all manifest states and experiences. All this human diversity that we have out here. All of our countries, all of our cultures, all of us, all of our different systems of beliefs and sects and denominations and religions and all this stuff out here. In deep sleep, there is a unity. What if you took one person from 100 different countries and different cultures, you put 100 people in the room and laid them down in 100 beds, and they all fell asleep, and then you walk through the room. All you'd have is just this tremendous quiet, maybe some snoring going on. Unity. No division, no fight, no war, no religious battles, no philosophers' debates, just people sleeping. This is where the unity is. Yes, Roseanne's the best thing I've, yes. Yeah. You're welcome, Scott. Unifier of all manifest states and experiences. Listen to this. Here comes the big but. But unless the conscious mind is trained to do so, it cannot recall in the waking state memories from the experiences of deep sleep. So we must, the suggestion is, just because he says it here doesn't mean that it's true. Maybe the man doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. But there's a sentence here, and then you and I get to sit here and ponder this sentence. Says, is it true? Do I believe it? Am I willing to risk my life on the possibility that this is true? This is what happened to me. But unless the conscious mind is trained to do so, it cannot recall in the waking state memories from the experiences of deep sleep. So, am I willing to do that? Okay, that means I have to train my conscious mind. Think about this. None of us want to do that. Over and over and over, somebody starts learning meditation. They say, oh, this is really wonderful, teacher, but my mind is driving me crazy. How do I get rid of these thoughts? How do I get rid of these thoughts and make them go away? And instead, what we need to do is train our mind. Is the video working okay for you? Would somebody type yes or no? I'm getting some freezing moments here on my screen, and I don't know whether that's streaming properly or not. So would somebody type in the box whether the video is streaming okay for you? I know it's going to take a few seconds for the feedback to come back. Anyway. But unless the conscious mind, it's fine. Thank you, Arun. Arun, nice to see you. I didn't know you were there. But unless the conscious mind is trained to do so, it cannot recall in the waking state memories from the experience of deep sleep. So what does that mean you and I need to do? We need to train our conscious mind from the plane of reality that we're living in out here. This is where we start, out here. So what do we do in the guided Yoga Nidra practice? And if you haven't noticed that we created a Yoga Nidra online course too, you can go through. So what do? We train our attention to move the attention through body parts. It looks like, oh, this is just a basic, simple relaxation, but it's very, very sneaky. It's trying to lead you to the point where you to fall asleep consciously. This was one of those things that I thought was a stupid waste of time. Here's this exercise called 61 points, and you're supposed to be aware of here 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31 is back here. And see, I've memorized them. I know where they all are. I thought this is a stupid waste of time. I'm supposed to be moving my attention to these points, and what I failed to realize, I didn't realize it, but it's a sneaky way of moving your mind around in the waking state, and then gradually along in the way, you drop off. and you end up here in conscious deep sleep. I was totally wrong. I had to admit in the aftermath that I was the idiot. And the thing that finally got me doing that was one day I was walking down the hallway early morning. I was walking this way, and Swami Rama was walking this way, and we got to the point where our shoulders passed one another. And he said to me, empty hallway, nobody else was in the hallway. He says, you should do yoga nidra. And I thought, and I had thought, honestly, I'm being honest, I had thought, what a waste of time this is, moving my attention, laying down on my back, moving my attention through my knees. Who the hell cares about, you know, it didn't make any sense. And I had to realize later and admit to myself later, I was wrong. Hard to believe, huh, that somebody called me was wrong. Anyway, I'll keep going here. I'm getting off on a rant here. But unless the conscious mind is trained to do, but I'm passionate about this because he's telling us something here. But unless the conscious mind is trained to do so, it cannot recall in the waking state memories from the experiences of deep sleep. For the student to progress beyond the three manifold states of consciousness, the three that we're talking about, Vaishnavar, Tejas, and Prajna, for him to go beyond those, he must learn to consciously gain access to all those states at will and to realize all three states simultaneously, as well as their unity within himself and the universe. That's how we do it. We have to consciously gain access to those. So consciously gaining access in Vaishnavar, in the waking states, this some people like to call in modern terms mindfulness. Let's be mindful out here. We can call it contemplation in daily life. We can call it meditation in action. We need to observe, be constantly aware out here. That's how we do that. And we want to be aware of Tejasa, the dreaming state. People that I know well who are doing these sadhanas will often tell me, Matri said to me something this morning, and I've already forgotten what it was, but something that was going on in Tejasa. She didn't just say, wow, I had a really strange dream this morning, because we think that this person out here is me. So we say to another one, I had a funny dream last night. Do you ever have dreams? And so the waking state person is claiming to be the possessor. Oh, yes, I have dreams. Dreams are objects over there, but this waking state person is me, and yes, I have dreams. Well, what do you think is the meaning of the dreams? Can I tell you my dream, and you tell me what is the meaning of that dream to me? It means I'm defining myself as the waking state person. We've got it goofed up. What we want to do is consciously gain access to each of those states. So when I know somebody well, like, well, the Matri thing, instead of just saying, oh, I had a dream, let me tell you the strange dream that I had and what I think maybe it means to me, the waking state person. But instead she says something about something that happened in Tejasa. It was, yesterday. Anyway, I get my days confused out here. The days out here sort of blend into one huge day. She's telling me, no, it wasn't today. It was yesterday, or a day before. I don't know. All the days blend. But it's happened many, many times, hasn't it?
Yeah.
That's the point I'm making. Now she's over on the couch moving in and out of Vaishnavar and Tejasa and telling me I'm wrong.
No, I was laughing also inside because I wanted to tell you something about.
She's laughing inside because she wanted to tell me about something that she was doing.
I've literally been moving in and out of Tejasa, waking state the whole night in every half an hour or something.
She was moving through all three of those states consciously during the night. And
every time I would come back out here, it's like, no.
Every time she'd come back out here, she'd say, no, go back.
This is not, yeah.
This is a description of what we're talking about. Gradually it starts happening. You gradually start to become aware of what's going on in those states.
Because the delusion of Tejasa is so strong. When you
the delusion of Tejasa is so strong. That's the dream state. Anyway, to go beyond these three states. And that is, our friend, the question mark here on this. To go beyond the three states and experience this, the suggestion is, he must learn to consciously gain access to all those states at will and to realize the three states simultaneously, as well as their unity within him and the universe. And what Maitri was just saying, this is how it plays out. And you just start becoming, by the effort of doing this and understanding this, the way we're attempting to talk about is, by doing that, gradually you start to become aware of the interplay of these three levels of our being. And it's really, really a tremendously neat journey. It's lots of fun. Is there a way to train to be aware of the dreaming state? Anjan said, yes. That's what we were just talking about. That's what Maitri was just saying. She was just saying that she went through the night moving between Vaishnara and Tejas and Prajna, these levels, and moving in and out. And then all of a sudden she came out to Vaishnara, the waking state, and said, oh, no, I don't want to be out here. I want to go back. And this is exactly, Anjan, what we're talking about. And this is a universal human process.
I ran into some samskara that I could identify as coloring, and that's not me.
She ran into some samskaras, and they were emerging from prajna into the dream state. Remember, the section we're looking here, the verse we're looking at right now, is on prajna, which is the deep sleep state. It's the plane where, if you're there, your samskaras are in their totally, completely latent form. Your worst attachment, your strongest attachment, your worst fear in the prajna level are in latent form. They cannot hurt you. You cannot have a nightmare over that scary thing. Why? Because you're not in the dreaming state. Now, this, to the conscious waking state mind, as we're having a conversation out here, sounds pretty much totally illogical. Sounds totally illogical. How can I be aware of a samskara in its latent form? Because we're accustomed in the waking state, the only time we're aware of that samskara is when that fear is playing out and I'm out here and I'm afraid. And so, oh, I'm aware of my samskara. No, I'm not being aware of my samskara. I'm being aware of the effect of the samskara as it just manifested out here. And now I'm looking around. I'm afraid the bad guy's coming to get me. Parents know this with children. The children has a nightmare and wakes up screaming and says, Mommy, 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 Daddy, 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 help me. And you go hold the child. It's okay. It was just a dream. It was a samskara that came to life. Anyway, he must learn to consciously gain access to all those states at will and to realize all three states simultaneously, as well as their unity within himself and the universe. Now, when it says one must do this, this is not like a disciplinarian rule. It says, you're not doing this, Ma. You need to go do that. You must do this. As if she has the ability to just force herself to do this in the moment. It's not that. It's saying, no, you must patiently observe the waking state. Observe when you fall asleep at night, when you're laying on the couch and you're about to fall asleep. Observe the transition phase between waking and dreaming, called Unmani. What course did we put this explanations in so well?
Om.
It's in the Om course. That's right. Yeah. Go through the Om course that we made on the Udemy. And I think we did a pretty good job with that. Hello, George from Greece. Anyway, we really, really do. We want to play with this. So how hard, when it says must do this, how hard is it for me to say, Maitri, when you're going to lay on that couch over there, if you're going to take a nap and fall asleep, attempt to observe the transition? Is that work? Am I asking her to work? Does it require, gathering all her stamina, and now she's going to fight the demons? No. It's a very gentle instruction. And it's a request that gets stated over and over and over again. Out here, from me to her and me to you. Please, please play with observing the transition into sleep when you go to bed at night. attempt. Now, don't use this as an excuse to not get out of bed and go to work in the morning, but in the morning when you wake up, attempt to be aware of the fact that you are coming from prajna and tejasa, and you're coming outward here into Vaishnavar. Yes, get out of bed. Don't lay around in bed sleeping and wasting all of your morning. I'm not saying that. But don't just jump out of bed and go to the toilet. If you got to go to the toilet, go to the toilet. But what I'm saying is there's a little transition there for a few seconds in there where you were just in the plane called Tejasa, or you were in deep sleep called prajna, what we're talking about today, and your systems are turning back on. Your mind is switching back on. Your ego is switching back on. Your memories are switching back on. Your to-do list for today is coming back on. You know that I have to get up out of bed and do these activities today. So those are there. But be aware of that transition that I'm entering into a new world out here this morning. This is me asking you, be aware of these transitions, and gradually we come to be able to witness all three states. And so when Swamiji uses this word must, that's why I'm talking to you the way I just did this last handful of couple minutes, says to go beyond the three states, he must learn to consciously gain access to all these states at will. And if we read that a certain way, it sounds like a very strong, powerful instruction. You must learn how to do this, Rosalind. Rosalind, you have to wake up consciously tomorrow morning. Rosalind, wake up consciously. With a fist, I'm doing that. It can read like it's saying that usage of the word must, but it's not that version of the word must. It's saying more like, Rosalind, in the next year, you are going to have 365 opportunities to observe yourself go from Vaishnavar to Tejasa. And Rosalind, you're going to have 365 opportunities in the next year to witness coming from Tejasa and Prajna back out here into Vaishnavar. Please, Rosalind, be aware of those transitions. You get 365 opportunities in the next year to watch yourself go in, and 365 opportunities to come out. And if you take a nap during the day on regularly, guess what? You have now over 700 opportunities. If you're doing like Matri is right now, laying on the couch over there with her fingers doing like this to her eyes and sort of a little stretching movement, her legs just went up stretching like that. She's taking more opportunities to be aware of that. That's the meaning of the word must. It's not rigid. To accomplish this, yogis learn to go into a deep state of voluntary sleep called yoga nidra. Wow, yoga nidra. And yet, remain fully aware of the environment. Yes, I have recordings. The Yoga Nidra CD that I recorded, whatever it was, 15 or more years ago, is the most popular Yoga Nidra tool that is in the world. And I don't know how many of them are out there. Many tens of thousands of people, probably at least 100,000. But that is a way of getting you there. In the introduction of that recording, I say in there, Yoga Nidra is a state of consciousness. It is not the methods that lead you there. I say it something like 5 times in there, and still people think that this is my Yoga Nidra technique, and over there those people have their Yoga Nidra technique. It's not a technique. We use the techniques to attempt to do conscious deep sleep. If you're Matri laying on the couch right now, she's been doing this a long time. She has a pretty good chance of being able to just go straight to Yoga Nidra, to the state of conscious deep sleep, without putting her earbuds in and listening to my voice saying, be aware of your elbows and be aware of your wrists and all that. Those things are very, very useful, very practical, good to do. It's in Amazon. Yes, it's in Amazon. And it's also in the Yoga Nidra Udemy course, which is online. You can have access through the websites. If you're not doing that, we've got like 10 courses out there. You can go to the ashram website. You can enroll in all of them for free if you want, or you can choose another option and give a donation to the ashram. Thank you. It's not necessary though. But anyway, so there's a course there, and there's MP3 files in the course that you can download and put on your cell phone and do it like that. But those are techniques. We have all these other opportunities every day, like being on the couch. To accomplish this, they go to a deep state, voluntary sleep called Yoga Nidra, and yet remain fully aware of the environment. In this state, the clarity of mind is more profound than in the waking state, but the samskaras are in latent form. Often, due to a lack of coordination, the mind is clouded and does not remain fully attentive. But in the state of yogic sleep, the mind remains one-pointed and clear. It's a tremendous state. During normal sleep, the sleeper remains close to the absolute reality, but he is unaware of that reality. But this is not the case with meditators. Meditators learn how to do Yoga Nidra because of understanding, like Anjan was saying, can I observe dreams? Yes, we want to gradually learn how to observe waking and observe dreaming and observe deep sleep. Those who have attained a state of equilibrium in the fourth state, Turiya, consider and can compare death with the sleeping state. Suppose someone manages to live for 100 years and sleeps 8 hours every night. When all the hours he has slept are calculated, one can see that he has slept 33 1/3 years. Suppose someone sleeps for 33 1/3 years without interruption. How would he think, remember, and act? Will he recognize his associates, colleagues, and relatives and the things he owned in the same way he remembers these after 8 hours of sleep? It's not possible, says Swami Rama. So sleep can be compared to death, which is a deep state for thousands of hours, days, or years, in which one sheds one's external garments, body, breath, and conscious mind. After sleep, the sleeper wakes up, and in the said differently, after sleep, the sleeper falls into the deep sleep of this external world. And in the same way, after the long sleep of death, one wakes up and assumes new garments. One who knows this reality does not fear death. But then somebody can hear that and say, but I don't believe in reincarnation. My religion tells me there's no such thing as reincarnation, so I'm ignoring that. Doesn't matter. The principle is very simply be aware of the waking, be aware of Vaishnavar, be aware of Tejas, be aware of dreaming, be aware of deep sleep. Prajna. The chapter we're in right now is on Prajna, this third level in. Attempt slowly, gradually to become aware of through those three levels. And then all of those other life after death and God questions, all of those will resolve themselves. And what does happen is that the understanding of life after death and the understanding of God grows and grows and grows. But it starts by saying, I don't have to believe anything. All I have to do is observe something that I already know. I know that I do waking. We're doing it right now. I know that I do dreaming because sometimes I remember dreams. And I know that I do deep sleep because sometimes I have a faint recollection when I wake up in the morning and said, I slept very well last night. So somebody was conscious even while I was doing deep sleep. So all we're talking about is, we're not talking about a religious belief system. All we're talking about is explore that which we already know. I know I do waking. I know I do dreaming. I know I do deep sleep. I know that I can smell and taste and see and touch and hear. I know that. I know I can move my body around. I can move my hands. I can speak. I can hear words. I can speak words. We all already know this. I can do that out here. And we all know that within a dream, we are doing that stuff. We know that within a dream, I can see and smell and taste and touch and hear. And I can move around and I can speak. We all know that. And we all have some sense, do we not, that there's a state of deep sleep where all of this instrumentation and my ego and my mind and my problems that I'm dealing with, all of them seem to go poof. They kind of evaporate, and I go into a place called deep sleep. So every one of us already has some insight about the existence of those three levels. So all we're talking about doing is saying, let's get to know them better. And that I need not be afraid of what's in my dream world. I need not be afraid of my unconscious habit patterns, my samskars. They're just memory traces. So by exploring them, we gain tremendous more insight, and gradually the other questions of life start to resolve themselves. After sleep, the sleeper wakes up, and in the same way, now believe it or not, this is just a sentence, comma, after the long sleep of death, one wakes up and assumes new garments. You may say, I don't believe that. That's entirely fine. You don't have to believe this, but play with waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. One who knows this reality does not fear death. Now that's probably true for all of us anyway who explore these three states. The notion of death somehow becomes less scary. This Upanishad refers to deep sleep prajna as being restful, joyous, and blissful. And this bliss-like state is superior to the waking and dreaming states. The bliss that you and I use, we use the word bliss out here in the waking state. But the way we use bliss out here is very, very small compared to the bliss, the ananda of the deep sleep state. It's very small. It's the neighbor. It's the next door neighbor to the enlightenment that everybody says, I want to be enlightened. I want to get enlightened. I want to know God. I want to know reality, truth. I want self-realization. That is the immediate next door neighbor to conscious deep sleep. It's very, very close. It is impossible to experience the waking and dreaming states without experiencing the sleeping state. You and I are using it right now. I'm speaking to you, and I'm out here in the waking state of Vaishnava. You're listening to me. But English language, if I use Muhammad as an example, if I may, my guess, my presumption is that English is probably not Muhammad's first language. So I'm speaking. How does he follow what I'm saying? Because my voice goes into his ears and processes and goes down to the hard drive, the memory bank that is at the level called prajna, and a little translation goes on in there, and he understands what I'm saying. I am able to speak because I have memories stored in that prajna level. It comes outward, and I can speak to you. So you and I are using that prajna level right now. We are constantly using it. I'm not laying in bed in deep sleep, but we're using that level. This is part of the subtlety of this. It is impossible to experience waking and dreaming without experiencing the sleeping state. The sleeping state doesn't mean we are asleep. As one cultivates the waking reality and utilizes the flow of consciousness in it, he becomes successful in the world. Similarly, if one understands the dreaming reality and sleeping reality and the consciousness that functions within those different modes of reality, he can enjoy life more than others do. And that is an absolutely true statement. But the only way to know it's true is yet we have to do it ourselves. But the highest joy and perennial happiness is realized when one attains the state beyond, which is turiya. During deep sleep, the joy of bliss that is experienced is definitely higher than the joy attained during the waking and dreaming statements, comma, but it is still a pseudo-blissful state as compared to the state of Turiya, which is the fourth state. And so our familiar, that was the end of the thing, our familiar little circle chart. Note the vertical dotted lines here. There's one there, and one there. So those three dotted lines split this into four parts. It's the same symbol. I don't have one handy here. It's the same as the Om symbol with the dot on the top of the Om symbol. It's just turning it this way and putting it in a way that's more familiar to you and I. We're comfortable seeing this kind of form. This, between this side of the card and this vertical dotted line, this is Vaishvanara. And what you and I do in Vaishvanara is waking state. Between these two dotted lines, this is called Tejasa. This is actually much bigger than this, but this, you and I think this is important. So it's nice to look at it this way. This is Vaishvanara. This is Tejasa. The level here between this vertical line and this vertical dotted line is Prajna. And on the other side of that is called Turiya. So it's waking, dreaming, deep sleep, Turiya. Vaishvanara, Tejasa, Prajna, Turiya. Through the tantric perspective, we look at this, and one of the names we can call it, we can say, this is the latent Shiva, not a blue-skinned god. This is the latent Shiva that manifests outward through the power of Shakti and manifests all of this. What our friend Mir tells us is that this is the meaning of, within Islam, this is the meaning of we come from Allah and we return to Allah. There's different ways and different traditions and different cultures of saying this, but we rarely or seldom think about it this way. So it's waking, dreaming, deep sleep, Turiya. Waking, dreaming, deep sleep, self. Waking, dreaming, deep sleep, God. Waking, dreaming, deep sleep, truth. Waking, dreaming, deep sleep, Allah. Waking, dreaming, deep sleep, Yahweh. Pick a word. Anyway, this is the principle. So the key to getting this is be aware of this and be aware of this and be aware of this. And this verse that we just went through today, briefly, it's number 5 of the 12, and the 12 outline the whole of Om. And remember, this is a symbol of Om. It's all about Om. And it's not a religion word. It's just a word. And it has to do with waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, and the state of pure consciousness that permeates them all and that is beyond. AI, artificial intelligence. Can you have a discussion about AI? No. So I focus on this. Let's focus on self-realization. And if you have an interest in artificial intelligence and computers and all of the technology that does that, you will answer the question. I'm convinced of this. I can't prove it. The more every one of us do this journey here, if your field is technology and artificial intelligence, you'll get smarter and smarter and smarter about it by virtue of doing this. Rosalind is a fine artist. She becomes a better and better oil painter by doing this. Whatever we're doing in life gets better by being aware of these levels of consciousness. So to be continued. Next time we're together comes the verse 6 is about Tejasa. So let's see, verses 3, 4, 5, and 6 were about Vaishvanara, Tejasa, Prajna, and the next one is about Turiya. These little chapters, the writing here that Swami Rama does that we're using to go through here is rather brief. And so we're talking about one of these levels. We spend an hour together here having conversation about this. Why is the chapter so brief? Look at the book, the entire book. It's only 12 verses. It's only 12 verses. And look at the thickness of this book. It's a skinny little book. And it's such a skinny little book that they had to stretch the pages. See, there's a blank page there. so that they can put a big number 6 there to say this is verse 6 and there it is. And so they stretch the pages just to have it big enough to be a book. You turn the page, you got another blank page, and then there's some words over here. And so it's very short. Why is it so short? We say, I want a longer book. Where can I get a longer book? Has thousands of pages describing this. Well, it's an outline. You have to do it yourself. This is the book to study. Our own inner world is the laboratory for understanding these principles. It's not done by reading more books. It's not done by going and getting a PhD in Sanskrit. There's nothing wrong with getting a degree in Sanskrit. I know when the former Pandit Ushabad Arya was teaching at University of Minnesota. He later became Swami Veda. When he was teaching Sanskrit at the University of Minnesota in U.S. And some of his meditation students wanted to go over there, and then he quit teaching there and devoted his time to teaching meditation. And some of the people asked him about going over to the university and taking Sanskrit lessons. He gave them all a piece of advice. He said, if you want to go, take the course, but under no circumstances do not tell them why you're entering the course, because they will push you around. They will laugh at you, because to the university, the Sanskrit is only an intellectual study of a dead language. It's just an old, useless language, and you're doing it only for curiosity. And if you say you're studying Sanskrit so that you can gain a better understanding of words like this, you'll be laughed out of the university. So he told his meditation students, you don't need to go there, but if you go there, at least don't tell them why you're there. It'll cause yourself problems. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar. We don't need to be Sanskrit scholars. If you know Sanskrit, if you can read the Devanagari, if you know Hindi and you can read the Devanagari and it helps you with your Sanskrit, that's fine. I'm not going to tell anybody don't study Sanskrit. It's a nice thing to do. It's a good hobby. But the study that we're talking about here in these Upanishads, the yoga that we're doing, is done internally. And I'm looking at Matri over there on the couch, and she's not moving, and everything's still, and her eyes are closed. I don't know what she's doing. I don't know if she's listening to me or if she's tuned out. But I know this when we're doing like this, she's often moving in and out of those levels because she's experimenting with it. She's playing with it. Why is she doing that? Now she's doing it because she's been doing it for a long time, and it's just comfortable and natural to do it. But what got her doing that? She had this troublemaker me around pushing on her. That instead of saying, wake up, Ma, I'm talking something important. You should be out here listening to me. I say, no, come and go, come and go, come and go. That's where the sadhana is done. Sadhana is done internally. This is where all we do out here is talk so that we can get some idea of what to do internally. Yoga is an internal process. Yoga is not a process that is done in a gymnasium, or frankly, I admit my sarcasm, it's not something that's done in a modern yoga studio. Very rare that anybody in a modern yoga studio learns anything about the subtlety of yoga. It's done internally. It's done in your own home. It's done in your own favorite chair. It's done on your couch. It's done when you're driving your car down the road. It's done when you're laying in bed sleeping. It's a whole life process, and it's one of constant awareness of the attempt to be aware of these levels. And all the methods that we keep talking about, yes, one must practice, says Rosalind. Thank you all for playing. Oops, got a little bit of a tail end rant there, so time went over a little bit. But anyway, thank you all for playing. To be continued. Next time we do this, I forgot which day it is, Saturday, I think. Next time we will do, no, I don't know. We will, next Next time is Turiya. And then the verses go back through by letter. Here, this talks about the levels, Vaishnava, Tejasa, Prajna, Turiya. And then we go into, it talks about the sound ah. Then it talks about oo. Then it talks about and then it talks about silence. So it's the same story in slightly different versions of ways. Yes, thank you for playing. Okay, bye-bye all. Have a nice meditation. And remember, ultimately what we're looking for is the silence that's after the Om, right?